Calaroga Shark Media.
Big news from Jerry Seinfeld after the late night jokes. Hi, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. Late night, pretty good. A set of jokes here. The setup, Mike Pence dropped out of the presidential race. Pence said, "It's become clear to me that this is not my time." Stephen Colbert said Pence's time was 1692. His place, Salem. His job, man who shoves woman into river to see if she's a witch. Also from Colbert, Pence said he prayed over the decision. Not surprising, after all, he had titled his campaign launch memoir, So Help Me God. Colbert said God responded with his own book, New Phone Who Dis? He got ghosted. He got ghosted by the Holy Ghost. Charlemagne the God is hosting The Daily Show this week. Now, last week I kind of piled on Jesus Nice, who was not good at it. Charlemagne, way better at it. Listen.
Mike Pence announced that he is ending his campaign. That's right. Mike Pence dropped out to spend more time in a separate bedroom from his wife. I will say, though, is it really ending your campaign when your campaign never got off the ground to begin with? It's like turning down sex when you have erectile dysfunction. Like, the choice was made for you already, my guy. All right?
Would Charlemagne want that gig full-time? He's off to a very good start. Switching topics, former President Trump was in Sioux City, Iowa, and mistakenly referred to it as South Dakota's Sioux Falls. Jimmy Fallon joked, Joe Biden was like, somebody help that poor old man. He's confused and disoriented. Fallon again. It makes sense that Trump was confused. It was the first time in months he's been in a room without a jury. Great set of jokes there. All right, Jerry Seinfeld, he's on tour, and at the end of his shows, he does some Q&A. On Sunday night, he was in Detroit, and he got asked again about the Seinfeld reunion. Remember, there was something about the finale, and people were wondering what was going on. Jerry Seinfeld made this super clear. He said, a reunion of the Seinfeld show, that subject has come up, and it is not happening. We can't do it because we would ruin it. We already ruined it, but we could ruin it even worse. Jerry joked, there's been conversations about it, but I don't think it would happen until all four careers are completely in the toilet. We're working on that as we speak. Jerry was more excited to talk about his upcoming Pop-Tarts movie that'll be on Netflix. Jerry said, I directed the movie. I'm in the movie. It has 15 other stand-up comedians, all names that you know, all friends of mine. So we made the movie, and it's coming out at the beginning of next year. The movie takes place in Battle Creek, Michigan. It's a place that I've never visited. M Live was at one of the shows in Detroit, this from the Saturday night show, and they say Jerry performed for just under an hour with an opener before him. There was no big introduction. Seinfeld just kind of waltzed on stage right after the opener finished, catching the audience off guard. It took a moment for people to realize, hey, that's Jerry. We should be applauding right now. Jerry went into a funny bit about cell phones and how our lives are consumed by them, but he's not very much interested in what's going on other people's cell phones, no matter how good the content might be, or no matter how much they want to show him. M Live says Seinfeld still has it, and then some. Nate Bargatze shared more about how he approached hosting SNL. He crushed it. If you didn't see the episode, find it on demand or find the individual sketches. It was really strong this week. Nate said, I talked to John Mulaney pretty quickly after I found out, and he talked me through it all. When you come to the SNL studio, you wrap your head around more of what it is, but everybody was super nice. Nate said he talked to Jerry Seinfeld about it, Pete Davidson, Kumail Nanjiani. Nate said, there's a lot of people reached out. They were very nice, telling me what to do and helping with the sketches and where you look for the cue cards, all that stuff. Again, fantastic episode if you didn't see it. Jennifer Aniston, Lisa Kudrow, Courtney Cox, Matt LeBlanc, and David Schwimmer put out a joint statement, which reads, we are all so utterly devastated by the loss of Matthew Perry. We were much more than just castmates. We are a family. There's so much to say, but right now we're going to take a moment to grieve and process this unfathomable loss. In time, we'll say more, as and when we're able. For now, our thoughts and our love are with Maddie's family, his friends, and everybody who loved him around the world. Perry's memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, hit #1 on Amazon's bestseller list following Matthew Perry's death on Saturday. The book originally came out November 1st, 2022. The trailer for Good Burger 2 is out, and it looks pretty good. It looks self-aware. It looks like we know what this is, just roll with it. Good Burger 2 will be out on Paramount Plus November 22nd. Give you something to do over Thanksgiving weekend there. We see Dexter and Ed reuniting as staff members at Good Burger as the pair attempt to help the struggling fast food establishment and its parent company's plans to grow the brand. The guys learn that Megacorp is planning to expand Good Burger globally, but intends to fire the restaurant's staff. Kenan Thompson warns, Megacorp wants to replace everybody with robots. We gotta do something. Hilarity ensues. Good Burger came out in 1997 and was based on a sketch that first ran on the Nickelodeon series All That in 1994. Like I said, I watched the trailer and I was like, all right, it's self-aware. It's not claiming to be Citizen Kane. And I don't know, maybe I just like Kenan Thompson a lot more than I like Adam Sandler. This is a dopey movie, but it looks fun. Veered Oz spoke to the Indian Express. And his theory is the audience now makes comedians humble. Veer said, earlier comedians were like, here are my jokes. If you're offended, I'm off to the next city. Now we have to be humble about the fact that the audience has a voice, and we have to deal with them in the most humble manner. I love this generation. They have destroyed stardom, and they value artistry. There's nothing worse in the world than the silence of the audience. There's no greater teacher than the audience. There's no greater editor than the audience. They'll change the lines. Our evolution comes from the audience. Are you into celebrity golf tournaments? The third annual Comedy Gives Back Celebrity Golf Classic in Valencia, California, November 6th. Confirmed celebrity golfers include Ray Romano, Jim Jefferies, Andrew Santino, Matt Walsh, Jeff Garlin, Greg Fitzsimmons, and the Sklar brothers. And those are just the comedians I told you about. It's called the third annual Comedy Gives Back Celebrity Golf Classic, November 6th. Let's stop off on Gossip Corner. Bob Saget's widow, Kelly Rizzo, was on Katie Couric's podcast. And this is kind of awkward. Katie Couric told Bob Saget's widow, I had a date with him once, as you know. I really liked him. I found him so cute and funny and amusing, and I did think we shared a pretty nice kiss in the foyer of my apartment. Kelly Rizzo said, he always thought you were lovely. He was a big fan. He adored you. Couric joked, well, not enough to call me again, but that's okay because it all worked out. He found the love of his life with you. In The Hollywood Reporter, a guest editorial by Iliza Shlesinger, quite lengthy. I'll skim it here. Iliza writes, innocent Palestinians are enduring a pain and tragedy that I cannot fathom. They've been born into a deeply complex region in society, and it's not right to treat their lives as expendable or as a solution to the problem. I can't say it's right to treat them the way we, the Jews, have been treated over and over. I have to, as a Jewish person, empathize with that. I hope that others can extend the same empathy to us. I was on stage about a year ago and I mentioned Israel, apropos of nothing political, and I heard people gasp. It was more a knee-jerk reaction to hearing something scandalous, something we aren't supposed to mention, like Voldemort. Skipping ahead, Iliza wrote, anti-Semitism is very real and very tolerated. As a Jew, it can be nuanced and difficult to outwardly express yourself without having to compare, equivocate, and acknowledge how hard every other group has it, and in doing so, it invalidates our anger in the moment by distracting an audience from our initial rightful outrage. In order to simplify a complex issue, people often make it about color, about white versus brown. What makes it easier to rally against Jews ignorantly? Jews are seen as, quote, white, unquote, or a monolith or a race, despite only 30% of Israeli Jews being white European Jews. People who don't even know a Jewish person or think they don't will have audacious opinions on Israel or Jews in general, often using their support of Palestine to substantiate their baked-in, latent at times, dislike of Jewish people, and their actions show it, especially in America. Skipping ahead, Iliza writes, it seems as if every group, especially in the last few years, has had their 15 minutes to say, we see your bigotry and we are finally vehemently standing up for ourselves, but somehow Jews have been left off the agenda. There's a lot more to that. You'll find that on the Hollywood Reporter's website. And that brings us to awkward segue. There's a new Looney Tunes movie coming out, this from the AV Club. And they nailed it. They wrote, it's got to be a little frustrating to be a major movie studio that also owns the Looney Tunes brand. There's iconic characters, Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck. Yet, the only time the franchise has ever produced any kinds of major dividends in theaters in the modern era, it was by resorting to also shoving the biggest athlete on the planet into the mix. Well, that's not stopping Warner Brothers. They have confirmed that they're working on The Day the Earth Blew Up, originally conceived as a streaming offering, but now it's heading to theaters, so you know it's high quality. No details on the plot yet. I assume Marvin Martian will take place in The Day the Earth Blew Up, and he's my favorite character, so that would be good. Vulture watched Gavin Matt's new special. You'll find this on YouTube. They wrote, one of the first jokes in Gavin Matt's new YouTube stand-up special, Progression, is about people who use the cliche, all things considered, that's pretty good, to graft silver linings onto predicaments where none exist. Gavin Matz points out, I feel like you're not considering all things. Sure, you're considering some things, but you're not considering all things. You'd be crying right now. This is a dark special, writes Vulture, dense with jokes about the dying oceans, suicide, overpopulation, and the possibility that we could all have cancer right this second, and Matz offers no hope for deflating all that heaviness. Isn't it nice that I put a Looney Tunes story between everything in the back half here? What's going on today, John? Vulture writes, take his fantasy about the life he would have if he could rid himself of all awareness, and one in which he trusts companies and their claims that they look out for the little guy. He says, I want to retweet my bank. I genuinely want to give my bank a retweet like, what you guys are doing on social media over at the bank, you're killing it. Gavin Matt's Progression on YouTube this week. It's out now. Mike Epps has a new project. It is called Buying Back the Block. You'll find this on HGTV. Mike Epps is on a mission to beautify his Indiana hometown. This will hit HGTV this month. The show will detail Epps and his wife Kira as they provide renovations and interior design to the homes the comedians grew up around. Vulture, speaking to the 25 comedians you should know. One of them is Zach Zucker. All right, what reality show would you be good at, Zach Zucker? He said, Survivor. I haven't done it in a while, but as a kid, I was big into eating slugs and worms, so I'd have a huge competitive advantage. Everyone else is going to go hungry trying to get a fire started after a torrential downpour, and I'm just rolling around in the mud, putting dirt in my ears, and slurping up my goopy little friends. Worst show ever. One of the first shows I ever did was called Zach Zucker, Real Life Human Basketball Guy Man. It was a 2.5-hour improvised theater piece about a mad scientist who turns himself into a Wilson official NBA game ball. It ruins his life, but he goes on to be the game-winning dunk in Game 7 of the 1970 NBA Finals between the Knicks and Lakers, and he gets some favors in the bathroom at Madison Square Garden. It was a one-off I did at the old Joke Bean Tavern in La Jolla. There were over 100 people in the crowd, including my family, friends, and my girlfriend at the time, who's now a WNBA player herself, funny enough. I like to think we all share a special bond because of that show, like the bewildered camaraderie between the onlookers of a devastating train crash. I don't think the world was ready for it back in 2015, but basketball has been making a comeback in a big way, so it could be time for Real Life Human Basketball Guy Man 2, Real Life Human Hockey Puck Boy Child. At the 312 Comedy Festival that does not believe in sharing their shows on a calendar-based format. As I scroll down, Jamie Wolf is at Zanies tonight. And that's the only time I saw the words November and 1 next to each other. I do see a bunch of November 2s, so we'll talk about that tomorrow. And that is your comedy news for today. You can follow this show for free on various apps, including Pocket Cast. That's the one I use, Overcast, Spotify. And if you hate back catalog episodes, Apple Podcasts, they're not going to tell you John put out a whole bunch of episodes over the weekend. They're just going to go, yeah, here's the new one. You probably didn't want to hear those other ones that John worked hard on all weekend. Nah, you don't want to hear that. Here's just the new one. Thanks, Apple Podcasts. See you guys tomorrow.